All right, I think it is working.
I mean, I can hear you.
I can hear you too. It looks like we've got steady 5 megabits, no dropped frames, low CPU usage. Well, how you guys doing today?
A little tired.
I'm doing great.
It sounds good. You can probably tell in my voice I'm not quite 100% today.
You sick or just the weather?
Just the weather, I think. Although Tama was saying that kind of like the heat wave that he has over there in Europe all of a sudden is over just a couple of days ago and now it's cold.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was kind of warm today, not hot. It was like, I don't know, 80 at most in the Fahrenheit.
80's not too bad.
Yeah, but the mornings are just. I'm expecting to wake up to like 30 one day.
Yeah.
It's like out of nowhere.
How bad are the winters there?
They're mild. Sometimes it's just
That's
like
good.
a fluke where it's just like, yes, we're going to freeze everything, but most of the time it's mild and muddy.
Well, mild is good as far as winters go. And Zen in kind of the waiting room in the pre-chat is letting us know about the deaths. Frank Beard, Dolly Parton, and Michael Donovan. Add Tim Curry to the list.
Yep.
We lost him too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the plus side, Dick Van Dyke and Mel Brooks are both 100.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Dick Van Dyke. Yeah, he's like. Apparently he's still, hanging in there. I mean, obviously he's retired from acting. He retired, decades ago, but, he's still,
Yep.
Still kicking around.
Mm.
Oh, that's just the Czech wiki. I'm gonna see the English wiki. Oh, he's still active apparently.
Yeah. All right, we can see what's going on in the world other than that.
Yeah.
There's a flash flood on the Nepal-Tibet border.
Oh yeah, I saw some videos of that, especially specifically on the Chinese side of things.
Well, they say there's 150 dead with hundreds of tourists missing.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I saw it. Buildings are being absolutely deleted by it.
Yeah.
It's like, you look at the footage and it's just like an apocalyptic film.
Yeah. That's kind of this picture I'm seeing.
Because the floods in the mountains, they're, the way they happen, that are usually accompanied with landslides and whatnot, so it just turns into this flood with a lot of mud and rock in it. So it's just like endless momentum.
And of course, are the politicians in your area? Are they blaming Man Bear Pig for everything?
I'm not sure actually this time. I haven't seen anything.
I mean, they always do.
There'll
be someone
before they do. We'll have to wait before they do. I don't think.
And then someone else is
start blaming us.
And then someone else is going to say, "Oh no, this is actually a good thing because now they can rebuild their infrastructure and make it better." Their basic broken window fallacy.
Can't rebuild lives.
Yep.
What is this? The story of Job? We're just gonna summon new people.
Well, think about it. How many cities make upgrades by evacuating everyone and then bombing themselves? That doesn't happen, and for good reason.
I can only think of Germany, but they didn't choose it.
Well, yeah. Hey, is Dresden doing great now?
No.
Oh, I think my webcam is.
No, actually, that's a a little little to go on a tangent, but
I just didn't do.
I mean, I've heard some parts of East Germany are doing better, but from what I understand, when the Soviets, took over East Germany and all that, and they made it communist, the East German communist government, because Germany, in East Germany, used to have a lot of beautiful buildings and architectures, and after World War II, they obviously got bombed, and you know what the communists basically said? They said, hey, you know what we could do? Let's build a whole bunch of brutalist people's dormitories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah, that's what a lot of them are saying about Ukraine. Like when you look at all of the, like for example, classical music that centers around Ukraine and Kiev and things like that, and it's all about, you hear that these were inspired by all the great architecture that's there, and now where is it? All this Russian classical music in the 19th century was inspired by it, and what is it now?
Speaking of Russia,
what's happening?
Oh, I'm just talking about in general. I mean, yeah, even before the Russo-Ukrainian War, just with what happened, I guess, just under the Soviets to all of their architecture.
Oh yeah, no, it's been an erosion on pretty much any country that fell under whatchamacallitems, the Soviets.
Yeah.
Communism, yeah.
Just recently we had a national holiday or a Remembrance Day specifically for the invasion of the Czechoslovakia in 1968.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a national holiday. I think Prague Spring might have that one. I remember there was a day that was off.
Actually, oh, sorry.
It's a essentially it's a very complex thing, and the Soviets were not really good for anyone involved. But essentially, during the 50s and 60s over here, we started sort of de-Stalinizing everything. We started kind of liberalizing, if you will. And the Soviets overreacted and decided that, you know what, we're just going to burn down the entire fucking country almost, or at the very least Prague. That was fun.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah, Prague is another city that if you go by the 19th century accounts, Prague was actually a pretty amazing city for architecture.
We've fixed a lot of things.
Oh, that's good.
But don't go to Pilsen. Pilsen's not good. I'm just kidding. But
also another great example of communism ruining something good is it's called Kaliningrad now, but Königsberg, that little enclave, it used to be part of the German Empire. Then it was briefly given to Poland at the end of World War I, and then following World War II, the Soviet Union took it over, and now it's an offshoot of Russia. But yeah, it used to be one of the most beautiful. It used to be really beautiful and had all sorts of gorgeous, architecture dating all the way back to before Germany was a united nation. And after the Soviets took over, from what I understand, they basically turned it into a dump, basically. Yeah.
I'm not.
Königsberg famous for the 7 bridges puzzle. You guys know about that one?
I don't.
There was and it's not like this anymore because some of them got bombed in World War II, and then they put in like a highway and added more bridges. But there was this river where it forked, and then after that there was this little island, and the island had a bridge going to each side, and then another bridge going to the central part of the fork. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. And then, okay, the other end, the part in the fork, had a bridge going to each side. And then I think there was another set of bridges for each side because there were 7 all total. Anyway, The idea was, damn it, my webcam keeps messing up.
Yeah.
Anyway, the idea was what they were trying to do is they go out bicycling, and the challenge was to go over all 7 bridges, but to go over each bridge only once. And it seemed like that was something that you could do. And then Leonhard Euler came back later on and pointed out that no, it is in fact impossible to go over all 7 bridges once and only once.
Yeah. I see it now. I located it on the Wikipedia page.
Yeah. It looks like you should be able to do it if you haven't read the explanation for it. But the idea is that when you have bridges going to, land and islands and things like that, the only way that can work is if either all of the islands have 2 bridges, or all of them have an even number of bridges, I should say, or if 2 of them specifically have an odd number of bridges. If one of them has an odd number of bridges, or if 3 or more has an odd number of bridges, you cannot do it.
Yeah.
Because when 2 of them have 3 bridges, you can start at one and stop on the other. And for everything else, if they have an even number of bridges, then you can go in one way and out the other. But it wouldn't work for any others having an odd number. So yeah, Euler proved that. All right, I'm giving up on my webcam. Everything else seems to be working.
Yeah. Yeah, your webcam might be the reason why you're roboting a little bit there.
So it's not just me. I was thinking my internet was just bad.
Well, I'm not seeing any dropped frames, and I'm coming through fine on my monitor, so I'm not sure.
It's fine. I think the stream's fine. It's just Discord being Discord.
Oh yeah, it might be.
What do you mean low battery on my mouse? Can we not have technical issues?
Is there any sort of setting in Discord I can do to make it better? Share your screen, turn on camera, start an activity. Oh, it doesn't seem to be. Like if I can give it a more priority with the CPU or whatever.
No, I don't think you can do that.
Because OBS is using less than 8% of the CPU.
I don't think it's a CPU thing.
And I've got a clear 5 megabits streaming through to YouTube, Odysee, and Rumble. And none of them are reporting dropped frames.
Yeah, it might just be that Discord's getting reduced.
All right, we'll just blame Discord.
It's usually what it is.
So,
all right, let's see. Kyle has gone completely nuts. Are we talking about Kyle Kalinske here, or who? He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just, yeah, he went completely nuts. He's the left-wing Alex Jones. Discord is in need of course correction.
Yeah, Kyle Kalinske.
And someone earlier was ranting about Luigi Maggioni.
It was
yeah.
Never mind all those people who are going to lose their health insurance. Yep, that is true. That's one thing that a lot of those people don't understand. It's like people need to understand. It's like, listen, America's healthcare system isn't the best in the world, but the best way to fix it isn't to cause something that's going to make it even worse, because everyone knows that when a CEO or someone major, dies or something happens to them, the stock drops because of uncertainty.
Yeah. Best way is to get the government out of it.
Yep.
Yes.
The more we get government involved, the worse it gets. I don't know, Tom, but what's a healthcare system like over there in the Czech Republic?
So as far as I know, there are 2 forms of the This is, I'm not trying to sidestep the question, more so specifying the fact that indeed in the Czech Republic, Germany, and in fact a couple more countries in Europe, it's more like what the US has than what the UK or the Nordics have.
Yeah.
So a kind of public-private conglomerate glommed together.
You have a couple public insurance companies and you have private insurance companies. You can choose one. You have to choose one. Your employer and you together as effectively a cut from your wage. You pay that into the thing, and then you take it out when whatever. Right? It's not that different from the U.S. system beyond the regulations in relation to everything.
Yeah. That's one thing I love about the internet. You have all those leftists saying, the problem is that our healthcare isn't free like in Europe. And I've got a lot of European Discord friends who I bring that up and they're like, what free healthcare?
Yeah.
Because even in the UK, you got to pay for some of it too. And the healthcare you got to pay for, it is expensive.
I've heard horror stories from the UK.
Oh no, the UK is an absolute disaster, as are the Nordic countries. Oh, hello there.
It's been a while.
Tom.
Oh, hang on. Hey, it's Duke. How you doing?
I've been relaxing and, just living and surviving. How are y'all gentlemen feeling?
Great.
Hang on, I'm just juicing up your volume a bit.
Man, the last time I heard from you, Shane still had co-hosts on the podcast.
You've been on a few times since then.
Yeah, I've been around, and the thing is, I'm just listening to all the stuff that's going on. I think the problem with healthcare, and something that affects all of us, is the lack of connection, lack of it, of like the lack of that type of connection with people in the communities, in that type of stuff, because the people have no connection to each other. There's no real reason why people are like, they look towards other people because they don't trust the people, next door to them. And I think that's one thing that that you talked about with your aid societies that were mostly gone now because of, they've been bought up by government and all these other things. And I always say I want a functional thing because I think there's some things that government can do, but I think that, healthcare and such like that, which is different than not just a one size fit all, but you have to have a different, what type of medication someone takes. Some people have different type of prescriptions. These things are serious and complicated. And I worry, the one thing I worry about is when you do have these, the healthcare stuff, the reason why I worry a lot of it is because cost and lack of information. Because the lack of information, the lack of real type of thing that can, the lack of knowledge about what type of services that people need, it gets to confusion, and that's why people just they cry out for someone to help. If without that type of knowledge, without people saying, okay, what do we need? How do we do this and such? I think people just say, well, let's let the government do it. We just don't think about it. No, you have to think about it. You have to look and see how these things are. And I think that's one of the main problems, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I myself would be very happy if they simply just got rid of healthcare.gov. Because I am sick of this idea of every November you have to redo your health insurance.
You have to redo your health insurance?
Yeah. You have to sign up again for everything. Yeah. And of course, so it's not a case where you just get on a policy and you stay on it for as long as you want. And then of course, every year they take that opportunity because, costs change and things like that, all of a sudden the insurance plan you like doesn't exist anymore. And you're just trying to figure out which is the least bad of the options you have.
Reminds me of the way you guys do taxes.
Oh, God.
Like having to straight up use something like TurboTax or whatever in order to fucking get anything done. It's
Yeah, it's just way too complicated. And it doesn't have to be that way, because all you're doing is filling out a form to tell the government what they already know anyway. They could just send it to you pre-filled out, and then you just make any corrections and send it back.
I think it's something like that over here. I know the income taxes, you certainly don't have to think about those at all. I never
See, I would think that's how government would want it. They don't want you thinking about taxes and how much you pay. But then why did they make income tax so just insane?
I see every single tiny bit of money they take away from me. It's all displayed in my little thingy that breaks down how my wages handled.
Well, you see, if you're self-employed or a business owner, you got to do it all yourself. There's not like any withholding. So every quarter, you got to send in the estimated tax.
Every quarter?
Yep.
I think at the end of the day, I think most of the people would agree that I think healthcare costs money, and people need to have that type of stuff there if you need it, because you never know. I honestly wish there was a way of like a community. It's outlandish. It's crazy, maybe crazy, but I think a community pot or something. Not.
But they used to have things like that. They used to have things like that, but they're illegal now.
Oh yeah, that's the problem. Is that
if I'm not mistaken,
I wish there was more like that.
Aren't they like effectively illegal rather than actually illegal, or did they actually make them illegal?
Well, let me put it this way. This was like 10, 15 years ago, but a few doctors' offices got the idea that, hey, if people just paid us directly instead of going through insurance companies, we could save them a lot of money. And so they'd say, okay, you pay us, $50 a month or whatever. And, you can have, maybe not every time you blow your nose, but you can come in and have visits that, will include in that, and labs that are on site. I mean, anything they have to send off to an extra lab, of course, they'd have to bill you for that because they get billed for that. But it was a good deal, and government swooped down and said, nope, you couldn't do that because you're behaving like an insurance company, and only insurance companies can do that.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm about to check out. I gotta start cooking dinner. Anyway, it's nice talking to y'all again about this subject, and I know there's still gonna be discussions about it, but I think at the end of the day, it has to be. I wish it was more community focused, so we could have like more local hospitals and more type of care in those communities instead of like putting them like so far away. I think that would be much better for people, but that's just my personal opinion.
No, it's infinitely better.
Yeah. Well, take care and have a good dinner.
Very much. I will. All right. Peace.
I didn't even say goodbye.
He got food. He wasn't waiting around. It's like, there's food, man.
There's food. We have to. What is the word? Nutrate. It's like hydrate, nutrate. Like
or
horrible. I don't like the word nutrate.
Or as they always said in my neck of the woods, come and get it. Got it called into dinner.
Speaking of food, Mondani still wants to go through with his government grocery stores.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Everything.
And you know what? It just shows how arrogant he is. He is, because people have pointed out, it's like, but Mr. Mamdani, if you do that, you're essentially going to make, the few stores that are still struggling to go there, you're going to make them go out of business. And he basically was, and he and many of his supporters basically did the classic, well, if they can't afford to operate without a profit, then they're clearly doing something wrong, so they deserve to go out of business.
That's crazy.
I'm gonna paraphrase. Allchain, I think is what his name is. I'm gonna look it up. Is it this guy? Yes, Armin Allchain. Allchain, there we go. Allchain, actually. Wow. Allchain. What he has effectively said at one point is that even if every single business acted in the most benevolent way possible, you would be left behind with only the businesses that were most profitable, and so it would just look like they're profit maxing.
Yeah.
So in other words, this entire joke about the profit being evil and all that has nothing at all to do with it. It's just survivalist pressures, it's evolutionary pressures, but in the market. If you're not
Exactly. Well,
you're gonna die.
well, no, that's actually very accurate, because a lot of people don't know this. Darwin got a lot of the inspiration for how he figured out natural selection by reading Adam Smith.
Really?
Yeah. And he saw that it was kind of the same thing that Smith was talking about in an economy, just with life forms instead of businesses.
You know which school of economics is forgotten or even used pejoratively? The Manchester School.
Not familiar with that one.
And it's so funny because they were, during the time of the British Corn Laws, they were heavily against it. They were all for free market, and they were the guys who effectively cemented the idea that the markets are peacemaking tools. That if you have open markets, wars will just not make any sense. It's
So basically they followed Frederick Bastiat.
let me find Manchester School. There are a bunch of schools that people don't talk about. I think it was Manchester liberalism, was it?
So we got Ray Mia. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but he says, as much as, or she, I'm not sure, as much as I would like government out of healthcare and other sectors, is frustrating on my end because I have to rely on Social Security. That is entirely the idea. They get you dependent on them.
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's the welfare trap, effectively.
Yeah.
But here, I found it. Manchester liberalism comprises the political, economic, and social movements of the 19th century that originated in Manchester. Led by Richard Cobden and John Bright, it won a wide hearing for its argument that free trade would lead to a more equitable society, making essential products available to all. Its most famous activity was the Anti-Corn Law League that called for the repeal of the corn laws that kept food prices high. It expounded the social and economic implications of free trade and laissez-faire capitalism. The Manchester School took the theories of economic liberalism advocated by classical economists such as Adam Smith and made them the basis for government policy. It also promoted pacifism, anti-slavery, freedom of the press, and separation of church and state.
Well, see, that's why you hate them. We can't have all that stuff. They gotta go.
The theoretical basis was on the writings of Adam Smith, David Hume, and Jean-Baptiste Say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've
Mayo, okay.
forgotten about these. It's just like we've forgotten about these.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many lessons you see from, the corn laws and, the Irish potato famine and things like that. All of these lessons going back centuries, and no one learns. Government just keeps doing the same screwy thing over and over again, and people just go along with it, and you say there's something wrong with it. It's like, well, how can you say that?
Thanks, Hegel. Because like without Hegel, we wouldn't have a lot of the stuff that eventually gave us Marxism, but also all of the stuff that probably led to Keynesianism, and
Yeah.
like effectively anything that reduces humans to just like periodic elements or just like machines effectively leads all the way to both Hegel on the side of Marxism and like the technocracy of sort of things, but also Descartes, Rene Descartes. I have been deep in this philosophical rabbit hole. I will talk about this.
That's fine.
Descartes. I don't like him. I don't like Cartesianism. It's just absolute hell. It reduces humans into machines.
Yeah.
It's also like the whole mind body thing. It's very annoying, and it's and his entire idea, that's the worst part. You have Hume, who was a radical skeptic of sorts. You know, he effectively asked, where can you see the cause? There is no cause and effect. There are just things happening. Here the ball is rolling, here is the point where it hits, and here is where it whatever. But in what direction does that cause the cause and whatnot? That was basically Hume's shtick. But at least Hume touched grass. He went to drink. He went to play backgammon. It doesn't matter. All of these things. Rene Descartes just went and got heat stroke and hallucinated everything, and effectively continued enforcing that.
So Chauncey,
Sorry.
yeah, it's okay. It's just the Chauncey in the chat. I don't know too much about the details of what Mamdani is doing, but he's saying like a 30% cut on everything. I can tell you right now, because my wife is an accountant for a grocery store, they are not making 30% in profit.
Oh no, don't they have like a 4% profit margin or something like that?
Less, yeah.
Less?
So what is a 30% cut going to do other than go back to rationing? You'll have points. You need these many points to buy a hamburger and these many points to buy a dozen eggs.
It'll be either that, or they'll find a way to effectively just make it so that it's the taxes that pay for the 30%, right?
Yeah.
So in other words, oh yeah, cool, cheaper groceries. Too bad my paycheck's smaller.
That's how The Incredible Bread Machine ends. I don't know if you've ever read that poem.
I haven't.
No, it's a great poem. Look it up.
Government, religion, or violence.
So I think it's like Tom Smith's Incredible Bread Machine or something like that.
State, parish, local governments will help turn around. Render the likes of Laurie Schlegel. What is that?
Schlegel.
Schlegel. No, I refuse that it's Brand Schlegel. Kelly Dickerson, those preachers that don't understand the Bill of Rights, and all those lobbyists, toothless.
Perishable items like produce cannot be marked up a lot because the product has to sell quickly. Yep. The reason why it's expensive is over on the supply side because of the Agricultural Adjustment Act and all the crap from Wickard v. Filburn, where people can't just, grow their own stuff and sell it.
Can't do that. Not unless you're licensed, I guess.
What some farms have started doing, this is kind of clever. They basically sell you shares in a cow. So you are part owner of the cow, and you can come and collect your share in the form of, milk if it's a milk cow. Or if they slaughter a cow, you can pick up, some of the meat and steaks and the cuts from it, depending on how much you've paid for your share.
We're not selling meat. We're just paying out dividends.
Hey, he owns he's part owner of the cow, so he gets some of the meat when we slaughter the cow. He owns it. He's an owner.
Irish potato famine about capitalism.
I know.
I'm sorry, I'm reading the comment. People making the Irish potato famine about capitalism will never not be funny to me. Even Irish diehard leftists, and they'll never do that.
Yeah.
How is in any way that in any way like the famine? How is that capitalism? Who?
It's even dumber about the Irish potato famine. Apparently, like a couple decades ago, the UK government, apologized, and their apology was, "We are so sorry for the potato famine and the fact that the UK government did nothing to help the people of Ireland."
They caused the frickin' thing.
Oh no! I am so sorry I broke your legs and didn't help you afterwards.
Yeah.
I should have given you crutches so you should walk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't give you crutches.
Of course, some people are like, "Well, how could the state cause the Irish potato famine? That was caused by blight." Well, the famine wasn't necessarily because of the blight. It was because when the Irish potatoes failed, they wanted to try other means of production. The British said, "No, you can't do that," basically.
Well, they forced them to overfarm the potatoes and out-rotate them. It's like a smaller version of what Mao did in China with the farms there.
Yep.
I need to see if these two things relate in any way. I'm going to be very amused.
What, the Irish potato famine to Mao's Great Famine?
Oh no, but the Great Irish Potato Famine was the direct and moral catalyst for Britain to repeal the Corn Laws in 1846. So it took a famine in the death caused by the famine in Ireland for UK to be like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be protectionist about this. Passed in 1815, the Corn Laws placed steep import tariffs on foreign cereal grains, including wheat, barley, oat, and maize, to shield wealthy British landowners from foreign competition and keep domestic food prices high. When the fungal blight wiped out Ireland's potato crops in the autumn of 1845, over 3 million rural laborers lost their primary sustenance. The Corn Laws made importing inexpensive foreign grains, such as American Indian maize, prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, I mean, potatoes were about the only thing they could grow.
Fascinating. So this wasn't capitalism. This
No.
was mercantilism. Yay!
Exactly what our current president is doing.
They're probably the same dipshits who tried to blame capitalism for slavery in the US.
Yeah.
I'm getting
That's the thing. That's the thing I always notice about people who say that with when I say slavery would have died out on its own, it's like, well, how come it ended almost everywhere else in America and all that, and their only exception is that it's either A, because America was capitalistic and therefore they allowed it, or B, it's Americans were just a special type of racist who would never overcome, their white insecurity.
Well, they just had to keep passing laws to keep propping it up.
Yeah.
And slavery was never that major a thing. I mean, when you look at it like at its share of the economy, yeah, it was a pretty big chunk, but that was concentrated in like the top 2 or 3%. Although the plantations you see depicted where they have, 30 slaves, that was basically the 1%, although maybe more like the 2% or something, but yeah. Most Southern households had no slaves. And something like a quarter of them would have like a house slave.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, apparently there's a new I don't know if it's Netflix or something, but there's a new movie that's going to be coming out for streaming, and it's going to be based off of John Brown. Yeah.
I have total confidence in Netflix on that subject.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if they're gonna show the fact that everyone, even non-abolitionists, basically said, "Don't listen to John Brown. He's crazy."
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, even, like, here's a fun fact, like, so many people say, it's like, oh no, he was a good man doing his good job. It's like, well, if he was genuinely helping slaveries, then how come famous black abolitionist Frederick Douglass was literally sending him letters saying, please, Brown, stop doing what you're doing, you're not helping.
Yeah, Harriet Tubman did the same thing.
Yeah.
What the hell do you mean? Not you. Sorry, I'm now drowning in the Irish famine. It's just like,
It's crazy.
That's
Hey, when you're done with that, sink your teeth into tulip mania.
oh, I know about the tulip mania.
Yeah. Do you know that basically everything everyone thinks they know about that is a complete myth?
Oh yeah.
None of it happened. There was a tulip craze because, crazes happen, but most of the things that people know about it, about how bad it was and the crazy things people were doing, that is Calvinist propaganda, because of course, whenever there's a craze, the religious people have to get in with their moral panics about it. Like, don't let your kid read Harry Potter and things like that. It was that. And that propaganda was just so good that people still believe it today.
I don't understand Calvinism. Calvinism and Puritanism, like, the thing that I always find so ironic about Christianity, although granted, to be fair, those branches of Christianity are kind of gone now, where are the ones that believe in predeterminism and all that, and they say whether or not you get into heaven or hell is determined right from the get-go from God, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then I basically be like, well, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is it the Jehovah's Witnesses who believe that there's like only going to be 140,000 or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so the rest of us are...
Well, the rest of you aren't going to hell. What Jehovah's Witnesses believe in. Now, granted, it used to be only 144,000 people total would go to heaven, once Armageddon claims. But then when they got 144,000 members and Armageddon didn't happen, they changed the rules and they basically said, okay, so here's how it'll work. 144,000 people will go to heaven, and the rest of the Jehovah's Witnesses, when Armageddon comes, God's gonna remake the earth, and the rest will live on a paradise earth with Jesus. Because
that's totally confusing.
Here's another weird thing about Jehovah's Witnesses: they don't believe in hell. Hell, if you ask someone what's Armageddon going to be like, it's like basically God's going to erase you from all existence. That's basically what it is.
Oh, they're annihilationists.
Yep.
So they're more aligned with the original Christian myth?
Yeah.
Yeah, they basically they believe that when you die, you basically hang out in your soul and all that hangs out in limbo until Judgment Day, and then when Judgment Days occurs, God's going to come. He's going to select 144,000 people to come to heaven to live with him. The rest are going to live on a paradise earth, and everyone else, he's just going to Thanos snap them out of existence.
I don't know if that's supposed to be bad.
Yeah.
I'm not going.
And that sounds like,
like, philosophically speaking, imagine living forever, and you are restricted in what you can do. Because if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that whatever the paradise is, it's going to have very strict rules. So in other words, that is going to be the effect of, the effect of that's going to be forever torture. Whereas the other option is just non-existence, oblivion. There isn't anything. There is nothing. You're just there and then you're not. Like, wow. Do I want to be forever tortured by the options I have no access to and just the lack of free will to do anything? Or do I just want to seize? It's like...
I do remember. I don't remember who it was, but I remember seeing this one video or something. It was a conversation that an atheist had with a fundamentalist Islam, and Islamists and all that. And the Islamist is like, what if you die and you basically went to heaven and you found out that Allah and the Quran was the correct canon truth and all that. and all that, and you were given one chance to repent, would you do it? And the atheist basically said, well, if that is true, and I have read the Quran, I would ask him, send me to the other place, because I do not want to be involved with a God that approves all that stuff in the Quran.
And then Ray Mayo, if I'm pronouncing that right now, says, and that sounds like as if religion was a government. That's because it is. Religion and government was the same thing for thousands of years.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
the funny thing is that it's like the beginning of government actually didn't have much to do with religion. Religion, if I'm not mistaken, religion came after to justify the government. But
well, it's when you had
like the stationary bandit theory of government, right?
Yeah, when you had the city-states, people started wondering, why should we listen to these guys? And so they kept saying, well, we've got this God, and this God puts us, in power, and then, there'd be a name for the God and whatever. And if you've ever wondered why, like, the Greek Empire, Roman Empire, Assyrian Empire, all of those were so polytheistic, what historians today think it was that every time they'd conquer a new city-state, instead of trying to change everyone's religion, they just say that their local god is part of our pantheon. And that's how they would incorporate everyone into the empire.
Hey, why not? It's cheaper.
So yeah, there was an area where their god was Poseidon, and Poseidon put their people in power, and then the Greeks come out and say, hey, did you know Poseidon was just a part of this pantheon of gods? Yeah, we're the ones in charge.
Jamie says, at least Muslims don't have a baby go to hell system. I'm not familiar with that, but I did see this one funny comedian from an ex-Muslim and all that, and he says, and he was talking because he's an ex-Muslim and he grew up in a very radical place, and he's a big critic of modern day Islamism and all that. And he said, you want to know why for so many centuries Islam prohibited women from learning to read? Simple, because if they could read, they would read the Quran, and they would realize, wait a minute, I'm screwed no matter what I do. Why should I follow this religion?
Yep.
Yeah. Because women, I'm sorry, Muslim women, but you are not going to be seen as equals and living in paradise with men. Basically, when you die and go to whatever their equivalent of heaven is, you're basically going to be a servant to all the men there.
They're doing that down on earth. Why make a heaven? Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought paradise is supposed to be the place of the impossible.
Yeah. That's another thing. That's another thing too. So many people say with Adam and with like all creation stories, because all creation stories, regardless, all have the same thing. That there was some. It's not just Christianity either. There's a lot of them. Even some polytheistic religions have this whole thing about how humans, when they were first created, they were pure and simple. Then something happened, they became corrupted, so the gods punished. So the being would ever punish them, with all these plagues and all that. And I'm just thinking, if this deity is so powerful and omnipotent, why didn't he just undo the corruption?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? Well, why Noah's flood? And kill all of the babies and the animals and the puppies and kittens and everything. When he's God, he can just Thanos snap them out of existence. Yeah.
Or doesn't even need to Thanos snap them out of existence. The person could just come and say, Heavenly Father, I'm addicted to committing all this sin. Please cure me. And he's like, okay, snaps your fingers, and then wow, your urge to commit sin is now completely gone.
I have 2 points about this. 1 point: I am unsure if many faiths, other than the Abrahamic ones, have these things. Not all of them do. A lot of them generally don't treat humans like this. But my second point is
the Greek pantheon is kind of similar to that, because with the story of Prometheus and the fire, that's basically
yes. But I'm talking about outside of Europe. I'm pretty sure most of the religions weren't like that. I don't even know if Roman religion was like that, or the the Norse pantheon or the Slavic pantheon for that matter. I'm not sure if they had penance-based sort of humans did a big sin. Because
Well, from what I understand, the way most religions function, at least they tend to kind of go with like because there's other non-Abrahamic monotheistic religions out there. If I recall correctly,
Zoroastrianism.
the monotheistic religions, they basically have some sort of story that says humans are flawed and all that, and they need to work spiritually to become pure and saved in the afterlife. And as for polytheistic religions, apparently their explanation for why there's evil is because for whatever reason the universe created a god who is good, wise, and all-knowing, but then it created a god that's evil and selfish, and basically they're constantly at war with each other.
Yeah, I mean, if you gotta have those things, you're gonna have that. But my second point is that the reason why in many of these faiths God or gods can't just unmake that is because free will.
Oh yeah, that's the catch-all for everything. Even when it doesn't make sense.
I'm pretty sure you remember the hell that we went through in the server here in the debate channel. I am not going to call out anyone, just it's free will. We must retain free will. Also, you're going to hell because you were born into the wrong family.
Yeah.
My favorite example of predeterminism that I'm like, and I'm surprised it's in the Bible because if anything, this thing would turn people off of religionism. The story of the clay maker and all that, where God makes a guy who's wicked and all that, and finally when he goes to hell and he's about to be damned, he demands to know God. It's like, well, why is it my fault that I'm sinning when you made me this way? And God was like, well, I'm the clay maker, you're the clay, you have no right to question me.
Yeah. Essentially what he said to Job. Mayo asks about
and be happy.
Mayo asks about religion and spirituality. My feeling is that spirituality, I think it came before religion, in prehistory, because it's more like superstition. Humans want to ascribe agency to things. So when the storms come in, and we don't have an explanation for it, it makes sense to think that there's some sort of being doing that. And then that was what was exploited to create the first religion. But I think we'd be better off without all that. Get rid of religion, spirituality, all superstitions.
Yeah.
No more lucky rabbit's feet.
It also kind of reminds me of this one comedy comic I once saw one time where it was about a person having a spiritual crisis and all that, and he was investigating all these non-Abrahamic religions and all that, and he gives Buddhism a try, and he talks with Buddha, and Buddha's all talking about how the whole point of Buddhism is that you live like this, and eventually you will reach a perfect harmonious state in the afterlife, and you'll be at peace forever and ever. And he shows them what Buddha lives in and all that, and he's like, dude, that's not peaceful. That sucks. That's boring as fuck. I'd go insane from sensory deprivation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually the biggest, even Buddhism, that's its biggest flaw is, the whole point of Buddhism is define, to grant inner peace and harmony and all that. But, as many people have pointed out, that kind of defeats the point of life, some people love, being challenged and coming across, complicated situations that they may or may not be able to solve. Some people like doing that,
Yeah. Well, that's basically what games are. They're challenges, and you got to figure out how to solve them.
Yeah.
Every game is like that.
Yeah.
In one way or another.
Every game is a rule-bounded system.
Yeah. Like, I forgot which one it was, but there was like this one movie I saw one time where there was a spirit that was trying to get rid of them, that was trying to get rid of all suffering, and he thought the way to do it was to take away, humans, emotions and all that, so they would no longer feel unhappy or sorry. And the other god says, well, listen, sadness, anger, and all that, those are horrible emotions, but if we get rid of them, then they can't experience happiness, joy, and content and all that, so it would literally defeat the purpose,
Exactly.
Yeah.
As Doctor Who showed in the Happiness Patrol. She tried to force everyone to be happy all the time and arrested people for being sad, and it didn't work.
Yep. That's why I hate those. That's why I can't stand the anti-natalist people. Because they're like, humans should naturally go extinct because if humans go extinct, there will no longer be any misery and happiness and unhappiness in the world. It's like, well, yeah, but there wouldn't be any happiness either because everyone would be dead and nobody would be born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They probably think that animals live the idyllic existence they've seen in Disney cartoons.
Oh yeah,
and they don't realize how tough it is for animals out there.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's why I love it when vegans they show you, it's like pictures of a slaughterhouse. They're like, look at this is what happens to cows when they're slaughtered. And I'm like, yeah, and have you seen how cows in the wild are killed by wild animals like coyotes? I mean, not coyotes, but like wolves and hyenas.
Well, there aren't even any wild cattle anymore because they're all dead. Because the only way they could live was for humans to keep them going.
I mean, going back to what I said about hyenas, because here's the thing: I've seen videos of them with animals in a slaughterhouse, and you know what they do to kill the animals? They knock them out with a captive bolt pistol, and then quickly cut a vein in their neck to kill them, and it's relatively quick. They literally go down like in a second. Versus, how hyenas kill their prey. They bite you in the butt. They rip open your guts, and they pull your guts out through your butthole, and they start eating while you're still alive.
Through the butthole. Anyway.
Yep.
I actually explored this topic a little bit, and I came to the conclusion that vegans are stupid, but we shouldn't mistreat animals because of two reasons. And one of them is just, hey, have respect for other life, but the other one is, hey, the meat tastes like shit when the animal's stressed out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's another point. That's another reason too, because starving and beating your animals and all that's an animal that's sickly and unhealthy doesn't produce good meat and it doesn't pull plows,
and doesn't produce milk.
And that's another thing too that I hate. What a lot of vegans do is they show a picture, and it's like look at this poor animal being beaten and abused and all that, and then you take a closer look at it's like, oh, it's from an animal fighting ring like in Thailand or something. It's like, well, yeah, no wonder the animal's being abused because it's being involved in an illegal underground activity. When if something's illegal, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, doesn't take a lot.
But they try to pass rules based on the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
As if all of us are going to behave like that.
Here's the worst thing. The current system where the animal is basically in a tiny little box and pumped all full of chemicals and all that, that is the best system because every single attempt at giving them more affordances, more things to do, more life, it suddenly comes with this, okay, but did you take care of this? Did you take care of that? Did you take care of this? And 10,000 other laws, which means that taking good care of animals is effectively illegal.
Yeah. But think about it, though. Would you rather be an animal in the wild, just constantly trying to keep yourself above, the brink of starvation and having to hunt or scrounge or everything, having to deal with diseases, having to deal with predators, getting in fights with others and getting wounds that just, it's not like they have medicine? Or would you rather be a cow in a pasture where you're fenced in and protected and you've always got beautiful grass to eat, and then you can come in and the farmer will just feed you, oats or whatever. You'll always have water. You'll always be protected from disease. Which life would you rather have?
I mean, the reason why Animal Farm, suffered, before the animals took over, it's not because humans are evil and greedy and corrupt. It was simply because, and it's even stated in the book. The reason why the animals were starving at Matter Farm was because the current owner was a drunken loser who basically gave up.
Yeah, a bad steward, if you will.
Yeah. That's actually another thing that George Orwell kind of got right about, about the revolution is, is that contrary to popular belief, the Russian Revolution wasn't necessarily a pro-communist revolution at first. It was just they were just tired of the absolute authority of the Tsar. The first revolutionaries in Russia were actually more centrist and more they were socialists, but they weren't as extreme, and they were all for allowing some market reforms and all that. But the Bolsheviks took advantage of that. It's the same thing with Animal Farm. The animals didn't revolt to overthrow humanity; they just wanted something to eat, and they wanted to get to the food stores. And when the farmhands, tried to repel them, they kicked them out, and they got all celebrated that they had so much food. And then the pigs came along and said, "Hey, let's not just celebrate this for food. Let's do something with this. Let's use this as an inspiration to overthrow humanity."
There is a question in the chat. In your opinion, what's the strongest argument against anarcho-capitalism?
I don't really know of any strong arguments against it.
I mean,
they all fall apart when you think about them for 5 seconds.
Yes, my only sort of, in quotation marks, argument against anarcho-capitalism would be, I want a specific goal out of society. Because when you accept anarcho-capitalism, you accept that there is not really a specific final place, goal, thing that it's working towards. It's just working. It's just a process, right?
Yeah.
It's a super task.
And going back to what you're saying, Thama, for me, like the best quote unquote argument against anarcho-capitalism, but the thing is, it's not really a critique of capitalism. It's literally a critique of humanity as a whole. It actually came from Dostoevsky, because in a lot of his novels, a common theme in a lot of Dostoevsky's novels is that people try to do good things, for all this, but they end up either doing stuff even worse, or they end up not working. And the overall reason is because the biggest flaw with humanity is that yes, we want to make everyone's lives better, we want to ease up, but we also love to make ourselves absolutely miserable.
That's,
Like for instance, if we end hunger, we'll start complaining. It's like, oh, I don't like the quality of food we have.
Well, I mean, there's just the Tocqueville effect. Well, the better off people are, the more they complain about smaller and smaller things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, like I said earlier, that's not really a problem with capitalism. That's just a flaw with humanity as a whole, and that's going to occur no matter what system you have.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Everything people they're like, the basic arguments boil down to, with anarcho-capitalism, you don't have any guarantees about anything. Well, what the hell guarantees do you have now?
Yeah, exactly.
Having to listen to people telling you how you have guarantees.
or you're guaranteed to have 60% of your paycheck taken from you in taxes or whatever.
Okay, no, luckily I don't live in Denmark.
I mean, that's actually a thing that, I do wish, some, libertarians and all that would stop doing, and all that. When people ask you, who will do this or that without a state and all that, you shouldn't be, coming up with reasons for it. That, the real example is that the real answer you should be saying is like, listen, I don't claim to know anything, but I can guarantee you this: if we allow the free markets to take over, people will find solutions to those problems. I think
and they'll be incentivized. They'll be incentivized to find solutions that work for other people, because that's the only way you're going to get them to pay for it voluntarily.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you just say, well, what if we didn't have taxes and people just paid the government whatever they owed? They were like, well, they'd never get all that money. It's like, exactly. Because people don't think the government is actually that valuable.
I call the idea where you essentially don't accept solutions that are prepackaged rather than solutions that are like discovered. I call that basically political agnosticism, because it's effectively just you genuinely asking, why is this a good solution? Why is the state the thing that it is?
Well, it's
And-
well, Shane. Shane, you brought this up a long time ago with your old atheism and libertarianism. It's no different than those religious people who say it's like, well, without God, then what explains all these other things in the universe? Why are some things magnetic but other things aren't? Why do some bundles of atoms create life and why others don't? You don't have an answer for that. It's like, no, we don't. But we have faith that hundreds of years in the future, maybe some scientists will find out the reason why.
Or better yet, you can just simply accept it is what it is and not worry about it. Why does it need to be? Why? Also,
I don't know is perfectly acceptable.
My question is, because I myself am an agnostic with an I. My question is, why does it need to be specifically God? And what gives God the specific things that it's he defines these things? And what even is this God? What are you doing?
Well, that's the
entity here that does all these things. Can you define it for me in such a way that I will understand it? And they will never be able to, because there is no definition.
Well, but I mean, that's what they do with things like, the Kalam cosmological argument, William Lane Craig, however it's phrased now to get around all of the rejoinders about it. But, everything with substance that begins to exist has a cause. The universe has substance that began to exist. Therefore, it had a cause, and that cause is God. It's like, okay, even if I accepted your first two premises, which I don't think they might be true. I don't know, but I don't think you can just say, well, they're true and 100% that's it. But even if I were to accept it, then that would mean that, okay, yes, the universe had a cause. There is a gulf way bigger than the Grand Canyon between there is a cause and that cause is specifically the Christian God.
Yeah.
I forgot who it was, but there was a really old atheist YouTuber one time who pointed out, it's like, even if we are wrong, even if the way we think the universe was created wasn't the created way it was, it doesn't mean that God did it. For all we know, the universe could have been accidentally created by an alien who was trying to make beer in his bathtub.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fear the day he pulls the plug.
Yep.
Fear the day he pulls the plug.
Yeah. Yeah, or like in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie, maybe the entire universe is one giant booger that was sneezed out by a giant eldritch deity, and it's only a matter of time before the great tissue comes up and wipes us all away.
The Great Green Arkle Seizure. That's basically in every version. Because it was in the original radio series and it was in the TV miniseries as well. And yeah, it was in the books too. Yeah.
Consistency. You get consistency.
Well, Douglas Adams always felt that it should be the same basic story, but tell it in different ways and add, extra things and give different twists to it. Just to make it new and fresh each time.
The metaphysics shall stay the same,
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people like to hate on the film, but I think it was good, And come on, Alan
was.
as Marvin was awesome, and Alan Rickman as Marvin was excellent.
I mean, it was. I just think it would be better if Douglas Adams hadn't upped and died. That was just...
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Many people fail to realize he was involved in a lot of the ideas that were in the film were Douglas Adams' ideas. The only reason why he never finished it was because he died before it got finished. But
Yeah, well, I mean, they had Kerry Kilpatrick, finish up the script, but I think that's really all he did was just kind of link everything together and do the refinements on it. But like when you have, what was his name? Humakavula. That was one that was unique to the film. And people were like, what are that for? And they kind of blame Kerry Kilpatrick for, why would you just make that up and stick that in there? He was like, no, that was Douglas who came up with that.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, and if I recall correctly, I think it was Douglas Adams himself who said, like, if you were to take, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and you tried to make a perfect adaptation on it book by book, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and most people generally agree. Like we talked about this, people have read the book and seen the film. The film is like one of the few, is like the only adaptation so far that actually got the Vogons right, because so many people were inserting their own personal political opponents into the Vogons, portraying them as either like Nazis or imperialists. When the truth of the matter is, they're bureaucrats.
Yeah, they're
Yep.
they're just a German bureaucratic state.
They destroyed the earth. They destroyed the earth not because they're evil, but because someone filled out the right form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would destroy their own planet if it was the same way too. If their own planet was scheduled to be destroyed, they'd go through with it because it's like, oh well, that's on the agenda. So, oh well, guess we'll have to find a new place to live. Something like that.
What's even going on in the chat?
I don't know. Someone is asking about the cost of building a home in Australia. 1-story, 3-bedroom homes, $500,000 to build. I don't know exactly how that converts with PPP to dollars, but I know they keep going up on my appraisal, which how much you want to believe a tax appraisal, because of course they're going to juice it up. They have my house as being worth $300,000, and I mean it's 2,000 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2-bath house with an attached 2-car garage. But if I sold it, I would not get $300,000 for it. I would not get that much. I might get 200.
That's another thing that
Maybe.
people also need to understand that people need to understand about economics with houses. Prices, go up because of supply and demand. So when people cry and say it's like I spent $250 on my house, $250,000 on my house, and I'm trying to sell it, and I've had it appraised, and it's only worth $150,000. It's like, well, that's how the market is sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah, it goes up, it goes down. You ask a realtor, what's my home worth? And they will tell you whatever we can sell it for.
Yep.
That's how much it's worth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Buildings that don't have any sort of value to them just downright depreciate, which is
Well, there's no fungibility to them, because even if you have two houses that are exactly the same, they're not in the same location. They're not situated the same, or whatever.
But you also have like the age of the materials and all the stuff that needs to repair them. That's a thing that's going to reduce the thing. Then you have compliance with laws, and you have compliance with regulations. You have the local regulations, the state and the federal, whether you're in whatever the fucking country you're in. There is going to be different levels of regulations based on where you are. And essentially, you just end up with this mess where I don't like supply and demand play a macro role. But these days, I don't know how much of a role they really play, because you just have a completely distorted market.
Yeah.
Like the groundwork is completely and utterly, that's what it is. It's the ground you're standing on. Too bad we're like high off of all the drugs you can think of. And
Coop says taxes and regulations pushes up building costs. People don't know this. I've seen analyses. It is jaw-dropping how much of the price of building a home is because of zoning regulations. It's like 80%.
Yep. Yeah, see.
And I'm not even talking about stuff like just, building codes and stuff like that you have to follow. Well, you have to follow those to make the house safe. Okay, but I'm just talking about zoning regulations.
Yeah, that's another thing too. People fail to realize. I don't want to sound like an old person, but this is something I've learned, from reading and learning about, society and history and all that. See, back in the old days and all that, where most people used to literally live at work. Like it was very common, for business owners to literally rent, like a 2-story floor. The top story would basically be where they lived, and the bottom would be their business. And literally, when they were done, they would close up, go upstairs, and vice versa. And the reason why we don't see that anymore is because nowadays, there's all these zoning rules, and you can't build your house above your business because, oh no, that building's zoned for a business only, not a house.
And we have all these big box stores, because it used to be like there'd be, a local hardware store that you could just walk to. And of course, the guy was one of your neighbors, and so you knew him, and you'd go in and, buy your hardware and stuff like that. Well, now they've got it all zoned. No, you can't build your hardware store. This is zoned residential. You have to be over there where it's zoned commercial, which means people are going to have to drive there. Well, if they're going to drive there, drive to somewhere where you can buy a whole bunch of stuff at once. And so you don't get the small local hardware store, you get Lowe's or Home Depot.
Euclidean zoning, as it's called, because of a lawsuit that happened in, like, I don't know, fucking 1910 or something like that, where the guy was named Euclid in that thing. That zoning is the biggest evil in the United States of America's building codes right now, and they are an evil in a lot of other places, though the United States of America is unique in comparison to, for instance, Europe, in that mixed zoning just doesn't exist. It's just a myth, apparently, or something like that. Like, oh, hey, look, there is this dying mall. You know what we could do with it? We could transmogrify it into a mixed commercial zone where you can have living and shopping all in the same thing, and we could enhance this thing. No, it is only commercial, and if it's dying, then so be it. That is forever going to be the commercial zone. Like, it's bullshit. It's just bullshit. There is just so much stuff that could be done about all of these things, and they just cannot be done. And all of the complaints about the massive parking lots, mandatory parking. All of those giant parking lots are mandatory parking. You don't need that big of parking zones for a lot of places, but they have to be built there because mandatory parking. Oh, you want to make like a parking park? You know, it's got like trees and all that stuff? No, incorrect. You're not gonna get to do that because you couldn't meet the criteria for mandatory parking.
Yeah, that's another thing that's zoning laws.
Because if you say I'm going to just make it bigger to accommodate the trees, well, now since it's bigger, you need more parking spaces.
I mean, I don't know, like, I do not know why, but I do know one thing that Zoran Mondani and a couple of other socialists are really going to war with for whatever reason is Airbnb, you know.
Yeah, they've always hated that.
Yeah, because they're all like, you know, oh, these Airbnbs are bad because they're taking potential, you know, buildings and all that could be used to house homeless people, and they're giving it to tourists.
And they're talking about like electricians and electrical codes and building codes in the chat. It's really coming out how much of a racket they are, because there was this recently just a big thing in Congress where one of the makers of the building codes had to come in and lobby Congress hard, because what they do is they change the codes every year for no good reason. They just change things to make change, and then, oh, that's the new code. You have to you have to follow that. And in order to follow that, you need to buy our giant code book and then use our reference manuals, and then, you know, pay our consultants to come, you know, help you with that. And my electrician, his sister and my sister were best friends for like forever. So he and I know each other. And yeah, he talks about a lot of the building codes that just don't make any sense. It's like, why did you make that change to the electrical code? And he'll give you all the details of why that's not needed or why it actually even makes it worse. But they got to get those updates. You got to buy the new manual.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know that Jim Carrey movie Liar Liar? I think that film would have been much more funnier if Jim Carrey, instead of being a lawyer, he was a politician, like a senator or something, or like an alderman. Yeah. Yeah. That would have been much funnier. It's like Alderman Carey. Why do we have this new zoning law? Like, what was wrong with the old zoning laws, and why do you keep updating it? It's because that's how we make our money. We change it every year, so you have to buy a new book and hire our consultants. Oh, god damn it! Imagine that. Yeah. Yeah.
How you doing, H?
I am doing all right. Busy, of course, but
yeah,
doing all right.
Yeah, going back to Liar Liar, like I've seen some lawyers review that film and they say like the biggest problem with that film is like, like now we're not saying lawyers don't lie, some have, but contrary to popular belief, good lawyers don't lie. You got to remember the thing about being a lawyer is that the whole point is like the term rules lawyering, like where you go, well, technically that's what they're supposed to do, what I mean? And if anything, that just shows how messed up, government courts are, because imagine, where in what world, can a government decide, okay, the color orange, it's actually green because we said so in a court of law.
Yeah. Ketchup is a vegetable.
Yeah.
Ketchup is a vegetable. Like the...
Yep.
Whole story about that.
I don't know what's worse, calling ketchup a vegetable or calling it fruit syrup.
I did see a funny like you remember that old Velociraptor meme and all. There was one Velociraptor meme that says, if sugar cane comes from the sugar plant, does that mean sugar is a vegetable?
Yeah.
And by that logic chocolate is a fruit.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
If you think about it, in many cases, in many countries, sugar comes from the sugar beet.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, here's another thing
nowadays.
Well, here's the thing too that many people fail to realize: sugar's actually not that bad for you. In fact, anyone who has hypoglycemia can tell you sugar is absolutely vital to your proper brain development. The reason why sugar got its reputation of being bad is because the government started subsidizing corn. So instead of using like actual sugar cane and all that, we use corn syrup sugar, which is not good for you. That's an empty calorie. All that does is spike your blood sugar up, and that makes everything terrible.
But that's a 1-2 punch. That's a 1-2 punch from both the corn subsidies and the sugar tariffs. The corn subsidies make the corn syrup cheaper, and the sugar tariffs make the sugar more expensive. So,
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
And if you've got a sweetener like that, that's cheap, then what they're going to do is they're going to start putting it in everything. They put it in, soup or other things where you wouldn't expect it to be, because it makes it taste better and it's cheap. So why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Actually, going back to what I was saying about rules lawyering, I think the worst case of the government rules lawyering, besides the whole ketchup is a vegetable thing, has to be that one time when literally Congress changed the Commerce Clause and all that, by rules lawyering, because there was that one guy that said, listen, why are you taxing me for my own food that I make for myself and all that? And their argument was, well, because if you're making food for yourself, you're not buying it from other, and that affects interstate commerce. So therefore personal ownership of food and all that, that's still interfering with interstate commerce clause. Yeah, if we had a time machine, we need to show all these ways of how the interstate commerce clause is being abused, travel back in time, and then have the founding fathers go, okay, we're going to make a new revitalization to the Constitution. Yeah, that commerce clause, get rid of it. Get rid of it.
Amazing. I want to say that sugar is important even for diabetic people. They just can't have a lot of it, but you still need it in your diet.
Well, the thing with diabetics is that when you hear is that people don't understand what diabetes is. With diabetes is that your body's lost the ability to control your sugar and all that.
Yes.
Indeed.
Like you can. This is like in general. I know that fiber is pretty good for controlling sugar, and that's why fruit sugar is better.
I've heard a lot of stories, from, because I like to read, those doctors and firefighters of Reddit and all that, and crazy stories they have, like, how are you still alive? And like a very common, diabetic fail they see all the time is they come in, they see a person, who's like on the ground, they're passed out, they're throwing up and all that, and they're like, what's wrong with them? And they take it, it's like, holy crap, their sugar is crashing. Well, I know that, they're diabetic and all that, and they were having an issue with their blood sugar, so I gave them insulin. And they're like, that's gonna lower their blood sugar.
Oh, I
Yeah,
know what you're talking about. Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's that one fire department stories or something
Yeah,
like
Fire
that.
Department
It's
Chronicles. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he's awesome. He does
Mhm.
one man skits, through careful editing
Yeah,
about
yeah.
stuff he's actually witnessed. And apparently, the comment section are full of people that said, "Oh, yep, I work in an ER, or I worked as a volunteer for my fire department, and that shit happens all the time."
It's
Yep.
like you just don't have
Yeah.
control over it. Either it's just like instantaneously no sugar, or instantaneously too much sugar, which causes inflammation and all kinds of problems with that.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing about being a firefighter. You be a firefighter, you think it's like, oh, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna rescue kitties from trapped buildings. I'm gonna save children and people from fires. I'm gonna be doing all this good stuff. When in actuality, 90% of your stuff is gonna be a call, and you're gonna be like, okay, so why did you stick that pencil deep down your nose again?
yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened here?
What-
Well, we were doing this dangerous activity, and the dangerous activity caused us to suffer the consequences of the dangerous activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zen says that nuts happen to be dry fruits. They're more like the pits. Like if you think of a peach pit, that's basically a nut you don't want to eat. But it's either, I know someone's going to remind me, it's either the almond or the cashew that's the pit of this fruit that if you ate it, it would taste horrible and it would kill you.
cashew.
No.
Yeah, the cashew, yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
It's very complex. First of all, almonds, if I'm not mistaken, are pits. They are
Yeah.
they are a nut that is a pit. Not all nuts are pits. Walnuts are not pits. The walnuts
True.
are the interior of a pit specifically, I think. I don't know. It's a shell. I think it might. Coconut is a fruit. And like
Yep.
peanuts are legumes, and cashews aren't even a pit. It's just a portion of the fruit. It's not a pit. It's inside of like a little stem that comes off of the cashew fruit.
Yeah.
You can cook the cashew fruit to
Yeah,
make it edible.
Yeah, and here's another little interesting thing I've learned about that. Like so many people say, talk about, the whole thing, is tomato a fruit or is it a vegetable? So apparently I looked it up and the answer is both. From a botanic standpoint, yes, it's a fruit because it has seeds, but from a culinary standpoint, it's a vegetable.
The reason why it's both is because it has a lot of umami compounds in that, meaning that its flavor profile isn't really comparable to a fruit when you're cooking with it. Even though botanically it is a fruit, and technically speaking, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, cucumbers are the same way. Cucumbers are actually berries.
I mean, yeah.
But because of their texture and everything, they're classified as vegetables.
What about Coop says, what about expensive food at stadiums and all that? Well, the truth of the matter is the reason why food is so expensive at like theme parks and stadiums is, one, believe it or not, a lot of places don't actually make a whole lot of money off the ticket sales because like for those stadiums, most of the money goes to the teams, that are playing there. So it's to recoup the cost. And another reason too is because you got to remember, there's thousands of people there. All of them are going to be hungry and there's going to be long lines. It's supply and demand. It's how bad do you really want that soda?
Well, and it's also like the concession stand at the stadium is run by, the people who own the stadium, and it's the only one that people are going to go to. So it's not like they have competition. But yeah, it's also the case with movie theaters. Movie theaters basically make no money from tickets. They make it all from the concessions.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so people smuggle in their snacks all the time, and then they're wondering why movie theaters are dying.
I mean, people have been doing that since well
Time
before they
immemorial.
started dying.
Time immemorial, basically. If there is a
I'm
rule,
pretty sure
someone will
people
not
have
follow
snuck
it.
snacks into the Roman Colosseum and other
Speaking of
theaters
sneaking
time.
snacks, this kind of goes back to what I was saying about Fire Department Chronicles and all that. But apparently I was on YouTube. This wasn't Fire Department Chronicles, though. He did have a similar tale to this. But I was reading a story and all that. And one crazy story they had was they got a 911 call for a movie theater because their friend was bleeding from places and all that. And they took him to the hospital, and of course he inserted a bag of candy in there, and they asked him what the hell was it doing in there. He's like, well, I was trying to smuggle it into the theater.
You don't actually have to smuggle food in the theater. There's no rule that says you can't bring your own food into a theater.
Yeah,
It depends on the theater.
most movie theaters, if I recall correctly, their general policy is bring whatever you want into the theater as long as we don't see it.
Exactly.
I mean, that's because it's really difficult to enforce otherwise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, people don't spend money on. And another thing too, if I recall correctly, most stuff that they sneak in, it's usually just beverages. But they still go to the movie theater for things like popcorn and all that. So.
Yeah.
Because you get that fresh.
Yeah.
And with that cool salt.
That is true. That is true. What people say, like, there's something about movie theater popcorn that's just I don't know what it is.
Because it's fresh and it's got the special salt.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And the butter. What is it that's a butter? Is it coconut oil or it's some kind of oil that just tastes really good?
Yeah, that's their secret. They use a special type of salt and butter that's a little bit more flavorful, so it tastes more buttery, and it also gives it that melty texture compared, to the stale popcorn you get from that. Not to mention, they often cook the popcorn in a machine that's specifically designed for popcorn, so you don't have to guesstimate in your microwave like you do with that home popcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's basically how it all started, because you used to have like street vendors for popcorn, and just like you'd have hot dog carts or whatever. You'd have a guy going around with popcorn carts, and they realized that they could make money if they set up shop outside the movie theaters and sold everyone popcorn. And so the theater said, well, okay, we'll sell our own popcorn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, that's not, that's just endosymbiosis.
Yeah.
Absorbed the popcorn concessionary.
Yeah.
It has become the mitochondria of the cinema.
I do remember reading somewhere, because see, one problem with sports stadiums, that are pretty infamous is that, they're known to be very big money losers, which is why a lot of, big, entertainment corporations, always push for the government to fund them, not them. I remember reading somewhere that there was one stadium like that, where that was the problem. The sports team wanted the government to pay for it and all that. And it's like, well, because we don't want to have to pay for it, because if we do it, it'll bankrupt us, because, it's only going to be open for part of the year and it's not going to be enough and all that. And one guy proposed a plan, well, why don't, well, here's an interesting idea. How about when it's not being used for sports or concerts, why not, make it into kind of like sort of like a mini mall or whatnot? And they're like, well, we don't want to do that because then we won't get to profit from the sales and all that. We just get paid the rent. Yeah.
And apparently in Sydney, the food is expensive because government owns the land. You're just leasing a spot for your stand to sell food.
Yeah.
Some horrible, bizarre rules.
A lot of cities have put an end to the whole hot dog cart thing because the restaurants kept lobbying them, because they kept losing business to the hot dog carts and other vendors like that.
That's what a lot of cities are doing, with food trucks now and all that,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
What's
fucking
happening?
war, but it's a fucking war between
They're basically brick and mortar restaurants are lobbying governments in some cities to basically say, yeah, those food trucks, get rid of them because
they're unhealthy and unsafe, and yeah.
And they're selling the same kind of food, but for like 3/4 of the price and with a third of the wait time.
Right.
Yeah, I have heard, from some business advisors that do say, if you love cooking and you want to open up your own restaurant, nowadays they do say, if your state allows it, do studies, set up a food truck, because trust me, you're not gonna make as much money as a brick and mortar restaurant. But the thing is, the reason why most brick and mortar restaurants, go out of business within 5 years is because the expenses of the rent and the building often exceed, the profit they make. Whereas with a food truck, there's not as many expenses.
Yeah.
I wonder where the little like over here we never really had food trucks exactly, but we do have little mobile kiosks that people sometimes set up. But I did notice that hot dog stands did kind of disappear. However, what did appear is a lot of window shops where you just come up to a window to buy things, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so I'm wondering if it wasn't just the little stands that it did exist, if they didn't just become obsolete over here. I don't know.
I don't know. Check to see if there are any regulations on them that drove them out of business.
Have to.
Also, didn't like in like the early oddies or something? Didn't the Sydney government also pass a law that says you can't have certain businesses open past a certain amount of time because it quote unquote encourages delinquency because it encourages delinquency or all that?
It was one of those cities, Sydney or Canberra or something like that. One of those.
Yeah.
Like over here, we don't have too many laws regarding this stuff, but I'm curious if there is anything that I may have missed.
Yeah.
A lot of those the general public isn't really aware of because it's just kind of in the background, and unless you're running a business, you don't know about it. And then people complain about, how big the prices are, but, the government doesn't want them to. The government wants them blaming, capitalism and greedy businesses because it's really the government that's doing it, and they're trying to hide that.
Yeah.
So it's like the standard stuff, actually. Like there isn't anything specifically against the stuff, other than that you just sometimes don't get to park everywhere. You cannot park and sell anywhere at will. Operations require strict licensing, hygiene compliance, and location permits.
That would be it.
Yeah,
because traditionally the food carts have just been, on the public easement, and so there are very few regulations about that.
We have officially designated market locations, vendor points, and approved temporary events. It's all of these mobile stand things. All of them, every single one of them is.
Yeah.
Ronald, I think this is why New Orleans would be better without the government. Yeah.
We all would. I've heard
some people I've heard some people jokingly say that about New Orleans. It's like, I saw one comedian that's like, it's like you honestly should come to New Orleans because even with the hurricanes and all, it's still a great place. The people here are nice. There's great food, all this historical history. The only thing bad about it is the government. Yeah. That's the reason why after Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans still looked like it was nuked, years afterwards. It wasn't because Hurricane Katrina was so bad that it did so much damage. It was literally because after the hurricane was over and everything was there, people were trying to go back. It's like, okay, I want to rebuild my business and my home again. And the government's like, yeah, you got to file out this paperwork, then you got to take it here, file out that paperwork, then you got to go take it here, file that paperwork, then you got to pay this, you got to pay that, got to fill out this paperwork, got to file an employment. Got to get into the appointment line and set up an appointment and all this. I think John Stossel did a special like that one time where he went down there and he did that, where he disguised himself, as a small-time business owner, all that, who had lost his stuff and all that just to see what would happen. And they did everything legally, and they did everything legally and all that, and he literally didn't know where to go because every time he went somewhere, for the permit, they kept redirecting him somewhere else.
I know exactly what happened here. I'm gonna drop this topic, but I need to just get this out of my brain. So basically what happened is that the mobile stand stuff was overall outlawed in general to clean up the city, but what did instead happen
is that what you can do is instead build a little permanent stand that is a permanent little building. There are plenty of those. Or you can get these odd-shaped rooms with windows and so on and so forth. So in other words, we didn't exactly lose this sort of thing. It just moved indoors, right?
But you just made it so it wasn't mobile.
Yeah, those do exist at the edge of the city, but I believe it's all about just permits, and I don't know if the restaurants themselves have anything to do with this, because like you have like anyone can open a fast food shop anywhere. So I think it's just a side effect rather than a direct policy.
The thing about government is that it only does thing when a sufficient number of factions back a policy.
Right, but we do like we still get markets, bazaars. The yearly Yarmark, as it's called. It's really beautiful.
Oh, nice.
Going back to the subject of communism, I once jokingly told a friend of mine, say, you know what I should probably do? Because I always jokingly said I wanted to run my own, mock political party. I've got an even better idea. I'm going to join the Communist Party and run for president. And my first presidential promise is that when people ask, well, what do you want to do? It's like, well, here's the thing. Since money is the root of all evil, when I become president, I'm going to make it so absolutely nobody gets paid.
Yeah.
Which is true. That's the thing that I always find so funny about, socialists and communists, is that they always talk about how evil money is and how everyone is greedy and how everyone only exists to make more money and not care about their fellow man. And what's one of their first demands they make when they run for office? We demand workers get a pay raise and all these, monetary bonuses and all that. It's like, well, weren't you just saying that wanting more stuff is bad?
Yeah. No, them wanting stuff is good. You wanting stuff is bad.
You see,
government causes more inflation when it grows bigger. Well, it's just the fact that they're printing money. Is there more service stations today or I don't know. We got plenty of service stations around here.
Inflation. That reminds me of one really funny comic. A friend of mine in the furry fandom sent me. It was a fake thing about that where it shows a director directing an inflation-themed porn film. Look it up if you dare. And basically while he's filming it and he's doing the whole usual stuff, he's like, "Oh yeah, baby, yeah, inflate that bitch up like the government, like the Fed inflated the dollar."
Channel.
That sounds cringe as fuck.
Yeah.
This channel chat has never been used. I shall post a picture of what happens every year here.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, I did see that on a Not Safe for Work channel. I was on a group I was on one time. One person made a joke that said, "Hey guys, you want to see some vintage German inflation porn?" And it showed an old video from the Weimar Republic when the Weimar Republic, you had to print an entire wall of money just to buy groceries.
Vintage inflation porn sounds like a interesting contradiction of sorts.
Well, the joke is that it was the Weimar Republic, because the Weimar Republic after the end of the war, they had all these war debts they had to pay. Not to mention, because the Socialist Democrat Party won the election, they promised the German workers all these entitlements, and they're like, well, okay, we gotta pay our workers, we gotta provide free healthcare and all that, and we gotta pay off our war debts. How do we do that? I know, make the machine that prints the money go brrrr.
Hiring more unproductive public servants doesn't help productivity. It strangles the private sector. There was actually, and I know this is sourced in Mary Ruart's book, Healing Our World. There was a study done, and they found that for every regulator the government hires, 150 private sector jobs are lost. Yeah.
Funny. Oh, going back to political humor about unproductive servants. I don't know how many gun people are on here, but apparently there was a British but apparently I don't know how true it is, but there's a legend that in the British Army, when they switched from the FAL to the SA-80 gun, which was a British bullpump weapon, the first SA-80 models they got were terrible, they were horrible, they were poorly made, and they were unreliable. And according to answer to legends, from some from some British Desert Storm veterans, they said, oh yeah, back in Desert Storm, we used to call our L85A1 rifles the public servant. Why the public servant? Because it doesn't work and it can't be fired. Yeah, the civil servant. Yeah, the civil servant. Yep. Oh yeah, I've heard horror stories, from European libertarians, who used to work for the government, and they say, oh yeah, there's a lot of that. Like there's literally government departments, and they literally pay someone like an exorbitant salary just to run like minor errands for them. Like they make more money than private firefighters and whatnot, and all they really do is basic, errand boy and secretary work.
We do that over here. That's like, especially in like education and policing and whatnot.
Oh, well, there have been a lot of people, who were like, government health inspectors and stuff like that, who admitted that, like, yeah, all I do is drive my pickup around from place to place and get high in the parking lot. And occasionally I'll go in and pretend to do something and give them a good score. Then I'll go somewhere else and get high. Taxpayer money paid for the guy to get high in his pickup truck.
Oh yeah, speaking of government food safety, and all that, I remember one time, because my dad used to work for the FDA and all that, and there was a story he told me one time, where there was like an outbreak of like some type of food poisoning going around, and they were tracing it back to chicken. And they inspected the plant, where the suspected chicken came from, and they literally they searched it from top to bottom, and they found out, this place is clean, and like even the bacterial numbers that could make someone sick are actually under very well controlled, and the bacteria that remains will easily be taken care of, if people cooked it thoroughly, and they soon figured out what was causing the cross-contamination. It turns out it was the government inspectors, because they were poking needles in the chicken, checking it for bacteria, and then without cleaning it, they stuck it in another chicken.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. And this caused, the bacteria, from that, to mutate and adapt, till eventually it mutated into a strain that was a little bit more resilient and wasn't necessarily killed, by proper cooking, and that's what resulted in people getting sick. Yeah, that's another thing people also say too. It's like, oh, but without the government, who's going to punish, a corporation when it generally does a bad thing? So here's what I ask people. Okay, let's say Bernie Madoff was taken to trial, but they couldn't find anything, so he was acquitted of all charges. Would you do business with him?
And how much does the government do exactly the same thing in so many ways and never pay the first price for it?
Yeah.
Not only that, but how many times have government explicitly bailed out or forgiven a large corporation that did a really bad thing because, well,
yeah.
Oh yeah, like a commonly good example I always hear all the time from Keynesians is that the whole Enron scandal happened because of deregulation. It's like, no, it happened because the government made Enron.
Yep.
Yeah, the government was bailing out Enron.
Always.
Yeah.
Well, and they also put Enron in an impossible situation because, they were closing down nuke plants. They put all those restrictions on, building new power plants. And then they said you can't import power from other states. And also, you can charge as much as you want, but the bill to the consumer can't be any higher than this. And that just screwed the whole thing up.
Oh yeah, but going back, I know I've been talking about them a lot today. That's the same thing with Monsanto. Romney, he's implementing, a rent freeze, where temporarily no one's allowed to charge rent, and when they are allowed again, it's going to be, super duper low and all that. And then he's wondering, wait a minute, why are all these landlords and building people leaving New York, and why are they shutting down, and why are people getting kicked out? Yeah, because people, if they can't profit off the building, then what are they going to do?
Damn.
Speaking of buildings,
people just don't want to pay taxes to New York. What the hell is wrong with society?
What even happened?
I remember. It wasn't Mondani, but there was like another socialist who was like, I don't know if it was New York or California and all that, and he vowed that if he ever got into a position of power, he was going to tax the rich no matter what. And when someone flat out asked him, what's going to happen when all these rich people leave the town to avoid paying your taxes? He's like, oh, I'll make sure that they're not allowed to leave. And someone flat out said, isn't that a dictatorship? And he's like, no, it's not a dictatorship. I'm a democratic socialist.
That is also
he's a tyrannical tyrannist.
Yep. Tyrannical tyrannist. How to make tyranny tyrannical, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, because democracy is a tyranny and socialism is a tyranny. So it's tyrannical tyranny.
How to make
Walter, I think it was Walter Williams who did like a really old video where he said, so many people think it's like, but democracy is great and all that, but really think about it. Imagine if so many critical life decisions, were up to a democratic vote, like where you could work, what food you're allowed to eat, what you're allowed to wear. You wouldn't see democracy as fair and brutal. You'd be thinking, dude, why should what I do have to depend on, on the vote of like a bunch of people who don't even personally know me?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to stray away from this topic. Before the World Bank discontinued its doing business reports, the Czech Republic routinely ranked around 156th in the world for the speed of issuing building permits.
Oh, Jesus.
That's like last. That's just genuinely last. And that's the funniest joke. It's basically peanuts to get a business started here. It's basically peanuts to pay the taxes for the building, but it's basically a Sisyphean task to get the building approved.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Basically, yeah.
All I have to say about anyone, especially going forward, who thinks that like democracy will solve all our problems, Orange Man won the popular vote. Simple as.
That's another thing I find so funny. There's so many leftists, that are saying it's like we need democracy and all that, and this is the problem. That's why Trump is undemocratic. Then you point out it's like he won both the electoral and the popular vote too, and all that. And then they go, well, that's because the average American voter is stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the undemocratic thing, because so many people, one of the promises that the Democratic Socialists of America want to do if they ever get into a position of power is they literally want to dissolve the Senate. They want to get rid of the Senate and make it so the people vote for congressmen and Congress, and basically they want to make it so all the branches of government are subservient to Congress, to the House of Representatives, basically, and all that. And I brought that up, about how that's a bad idea. It's like, yeah, but the Senate is so corrupt and all that, and they're undemocratic. And it's like, well, the reason why they're corrupt is because I forgot which amendment it was. It was the amendment that said we vote for senators,
17th, yeah.
Yeah, historically, senators were appointed, and the irony is that it actually made them less corrupt because what was the point, What was the point? You get appointed, you don't, get voted in, so there was no incentive, to promise all this free stuff because if you got appointed, you were typically going to be appointed based on how well of a job you did, But when
because you were appointed by the state, and so it was the state legislatures who picked you, and so you weren't going to have senators doing things like saying to the states, raise the drinking age to 21 or say goodbye to your highway funds. But the 17th Amendment allowed just that.
Yeah. I'm reading the comments, the messages.
Zen said, hell, the left doesn't even realize that public education is a major reason why people in this country are so stupid, yet they want to keep upping the funding. Well, that's the problem. They think that the reason why people are stupid is because the public education isn't funded enough. Once the public sector achieves infinite dollars, we're going to be living in heaven on earth.
Well, it was I think it was Jeffrey Tucker who posted on X. He was in a used bookstore, and he found an old Hardy Boys book, I think it was, from like the 1920s, which was made for teens. And, he posted a picture of one of the pages of it, and he was like, this is how they wrote for children back then. And it's like college age reading now, in a time before the Department of Education.
I mean,
yeah,
but that was the internet's fault, Shane.
Sure, let's just blame social media. That must be it.
Okay.
Don't you know, it's people interacting. That's the problem. People interacting makes people stupid.
Yeah.
Open access to information is bad.
What's another my favorite thing too, that when talking about education, because the biggest problem with education is that we don't have school choice and all that, and when I bring that up, like so many people, talk about, how it's like, well, did you hear about that one charter, that one private school that got shut down because it was caught abusing children and all that? And you know what I said? I said that only proves why they're superior. It's like, and they're like, what do you mean? Why does that prove they're superior? Because here's the thing: if a charter school or a private school is caught abusing students and not teaching them properly, what happens? People stop going, and it goes out of business. Whereas when a public school is caught beating up children and not teaching them, what happens? They say, oh, that's because we don't have money. And the government's like, okay, here's more money.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're incentivizing failure.
Yeah, exactly. It's something I jokingly call the Blackwater effect. It's where you try to point to something that proves that that capitalism is bad, but when you really think about it, it actually proves why they're good. And it comes from the incident involving Blackwater, the private military company, when they fired and killed Iraqi civilians and all that. And this is why mercenaries are bad. It's like, yeah, but you know what happened to those guys? They were arrested, they were put on trial, they were charged with voluntary manslaughter, and they were imprisoned until Donald Trump pardoned them. Now think of what would have happened if it was the U.S. Army that killed those civilians.
They get medals.
You get a promotion.
Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't get promoted, but they would basically, they would be passed around, and then they're like, well, who's going to take responsibility for those innocent people dying? It's like, well, we got to file an investigation, we got to do this, we got to do that, and
no, hold on, there is a simpler trick.
Yeah,
those were secret terrorists.
I mean,
but no, you got to blame government schooling and show why it's such a big failure. Because of how many flat earthers there are nowadays.
Yep.
But that's
crazy.
The problem. You see, the internet.
To be fair, and this is another thing too, that many people need to realize is that. Is like a lot of the people who are trying to debunk these things, they're not helping their cause. Like, like a perfectly good example, we brought this up, is the vaccines. So many people are like, RFK Jr., it just shows how stupid people are that they're believing this guy. It's like, well, to play the devil's advocate, the reason why RFK Jr. is in power and he's doing all these crazy stuff is because Fauci completely botched his role, and he kept saying, oh, do what I say, I'm absolute. Well, actually, no, don't do that. Actually do this. He was literally just saying what the government was feeding to him and not doing his job,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a mouthpiece for Joe Biden.
Yeah, if he would have stopped being a mouthpiece and actually did his job as a doctor and told people the truth, or at least tried to be as open as possible, we wouldn't be having, these skepticisms over COVID, and on the rare occasion when something did fail, like for instance how some of the vaccines were causing lethal side effects, at least people would be more understanding and go, well, he's only human, but the fact that he kept lying and just repeating what his party told him, it basically made people, well, if you're lying about that, then what else are you lying about?
Yeah.
Really, he should have done what other health inspectors do and just go from parking lot to parking lot and get high and get out of the way for.
There you go.
Yeah. Like, I still say that. Like, so many people talk about how it's like, well, COVID-19 was different. It's like, no, it wasn't. We've had similar outbreaks like that before. I mean, I remember when I was in high school and, H1N1 was a big thing and it was all over North and South America and all that. You want to know what happened? Did the government shut everything down? No, they just had it where like once a week at school, we had to watch a PSA about how it's like, now remember, kids, if you have a fever, stay home. If you sneeze or cough, do it in your shoulder and wash your hands immediately. That's it.
Yep.
Yep.
And H1N1 is more contagious and dangerous than COVID-19.
Yeah. I think.
But I mean, when you look at just people who don't believe gravity and say, hey, what proof is there for gravity? Oh, it's just this mystical, invisible force. It's like, did your schools in science not have labs where you could actually go to and do the experiments yourself? Apparently, they're not doing that anymore. Because, oh no, we need money. They've got more money than they've ever had. Per student spending is through the roof compared to where it was when I was growing up.
Yep. Oh, and you want to know what else that's funny is that, they always talk about how it's like everyone is stupid. We need to give better people education, but this has happened. There have been some DEI groups, that have said, well, we got to stop teaching traditional science because that's Euro white centrist. We got to look at science, from all perspectives, including, Africans and Asians and all that. AKA mysticism.
Whereas I was raised with the Carl Sagan kind of point of view, which is that science is such a universal language that if we were to meet an alien species, that is the only way we could establish communications with them is science and mathematics.
Yep.
Because that's the only thing we would have in common.
Yeah. I mean, if I recall correctly, if we come across, like a group of people, that speak a language that we never learned before, if I recall correctly, like they asked a linguist, like, how would we discover, like there was a like a professional linguist who was asked, how would we discover what an intelligent race of aliens, how to speak their language? He said the very first thing we would do is we would try to show them basic mathematics and try to figure out what their words for numbers are. Like, we'll show, like, we'll hold up one finger, say 1. We'll show like one random object, like a rock, say 1, until they get the idea. Oh, they're saying 1, and then they'll tell us what their word for 1 is, and we go from there.
Yeah, and plus and minus. And if you have 1, 0, plus and minus, you can unlock everything else.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, granted he didn't use math, but one perfectly example about how that works is like how in the movie Dances with Wolves, how Kevin Costner's character first learns, how to speak with the natives. He wants to, because he wants to see buffalo, but he knows they don't speak his language. So what he does is that he dresses up like a buffalo and makes their noises. And then and after a while, like they look confused, but then they're like, Tatanka. And he learns that Tatanka is their word for buffalo. And he goes from there, basically.
Yeah, Coop talks about not teaching kids about money. Yeah, they don't teach money management anymore.
Yeah.
Why would they? We want to make the children unable to... it's difficult math. It's a lot of difficulty. It's just so much difficulty. Everything's so difficult. Blah, blah, blah. So much difficulty. Like, friction is what makes life run. So that we should add friction. But, like, if you start removing friction completely, all you're going to end up with is perfectly polished ice, and you're not going to move.
Yeah. They also don't teach civil rights. Yeah, they stopped teaching civics. They don't teach the Constitution. They don't teach, the basic structure of government.
Why would they teach that? That's white people stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
We're hoping to have that changed by the time you graduate, so we'll just skip that.
Yeah.
People just, like... There is, like,
tabula rasa on one side, and then there is this idea that people just like generate information in their heads, apparently, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, children, when they leave school, they know everything, but you didn't tell them everything. They know everything, right?
To play the devil's advocate, because I went to school before this whole woke thing happened, but one biggest issue I had with school all the time, and this is a problem no matter what reform you put into there, even genuinely good reforms, the biggest problem is that because schooling is typically a government monopoly, what do monopolies tend to do? They tend to pick a one-size-fits-all attitude, and they don't ever stop to account for the fact that not everyone is one-size-fits-all and all that,
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the reason why schools back in the day used to give you a crap ton of homework and all that, because the politician read somewhere it's like, children in Korea, they get like, they get like 300 hours worth of homework every night. So if we did that, we'll be as smart as the Koreans, ignoring that there's other factors that go into that,
Whenever someone is like, we can have better educations, just look at how Asia does it.
Yeah.
Fun
fact though, if you actually look into how Japan and South Korea runs their schools, you would learn that one of the reasons why they are dying culturally and population wise is because of the schools.
Yep.
Because it's basically that's all you do. You're not allowed to have a childhood. All you're supposed to do is you're supposed to study so you can get that good job, because if you don't study, you're not going to get a good job, and you're going to spend the rest of your life as a farmer.
Oh, the horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might actually have to work for a living. Guys, we are over the 2-hour mark, so is there any further things you want to cover quickly before we...
That's actually perfect because I'm going out to dinner with my mom tonight, so yeah.
Yeah, I promised my wife ice cream, so I need to hold to that.
Once you promise a woman ice cream, you can't turn your back on that, or else.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Hell hath no fury like a woman denied her ice cream.
Yeah.
So anything else you guys want to...
You
guys want to just...
a good piece of wisdom to leave off on, honestly.
All right. So any final thoughts or anything?
Oops.
All right. Tom, H, anything before we go?
Good stream. What?
Yeah, just any parting thoughts before you go.
Donate to Shane. Those are my parting thoughts as usual.
Thank you.
I have none. Ditto.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me. And we had a pretty active chat as well, so thank all you guys for chatting.
Heck yeah.
We'll see you next month, and until then, stay strong.